Hello, this is my presentation about types of theatre and their audiences. There are 5 types of context when you analyse a play: historical, political, economical, social and cultural. And they talk about where the play was written, the issues that impacted it, the money in the government that might have impacted it, and where it was wrote. First type of play is pantomime. These type of theatre that caters towards both children and adults, and they use slapstick comedy to entertain the children, and they also include music and dancing. They also have bright coloured costumes to entertain children. They also use audience participation, such as "Oh no you didn't" and "Oh yes you did", and they're repeated through all pantomime productions, and they are widely known. They also use childish jokes, and for adults they use innuendos that will go over the children's head but entertain the adults. Second type of play is a medieval passion play. These are plays that are based on religious content from the Bible, so they cater towards Christians, and they usually talk about events such as Easter and Christmas. They are also quite community-based because they are performed in churches and in towns. The third type of theatre is epic theatre, which it caters towards a working class audience, and it originated in the 20th century after the events of World War I and World War II. The characters in epic theatre are working class, and they so that the audience can relate to the characters' experiences. And epic theatre is set as a montage, so the scenes can be performed together or by themselves. The play can be set over a few days to many years. For example, Mother Courage is set over a 30-year time span, and this is different to a naturalistic play, as they are usually set over a short time period. Epic theatre is often impacted by the political climate at the time, such as World War I. Epic theatre is designed to make the audience think, and the audience is not supposed to become invested in the story or characters, so the intention of the writer is to separate them from each other. Techniques that are used in epic theatre include placards, multi-rolling, split rolls, exaggerated movements and emotions, and characters without names. These are all methods that make the performers isolated from the audience. A practitioner in epic theatre is Bert Hölprecht. He wrote plays such as Mother Courage and The Life of Galileo. He was born in Germany and was affected by World War II, as he was exiled from Germany in 1933 and lived in Scandinavia in the USA. He became famous during his exile for writing Mother Courage, which is a chronicle play of the 30-Year War. Mother Courage is a famous anti-war play, and it has themes such as wealth, religion, innocence and power. It is set in the 17th century and was written in 1939. The play deals with issues about warfare and how it affects others, and what happened politically when the play was written was just halfway through the Second World War. The next type of theatre is absurd theatre, which was created during the Cold War and often comments on the political situation and the lack of change after World War II. It has a cyclical structure, meaning that it starts and ends the same way. And it was created to make you question the reason for your own existence and actions. This is called existentialism, and that is the purpose and meaning of life. Techniques used in absurd theatre are silence, jokes in high-tension moments, and a cyclical structure. This shows that things never change, and the silence is used to create tension, and the high jokes are used to lessen the tension. A practitioner in absurd theatre was Harold Pinter. He wrote The Caretaker. He was a screenwriter, director and actor, and was born in East London in 1930. He set his play The Caretaker in the place where he grew up, and he is considered the most complex and challenging post-World War II dramatist. His plays are well known for their use of small talk and silence to show characters' thoughts processes, and he went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts to to study drama but dropped out in order to become an actor. The Caretaker has many themes that run throughout it. Some examples are corruption, innocence, and allegiance. It was set in 50s East London, which is where he grew up. The play deals with issues such as lack of change since World Wars and talks about existentialism throughout the play. Pincher is well known for post-World War II, and his plays comment on the World War and the lack of change since then. Last type of theatre is naturalistic, which is a play designed for the audience to passively watch the piece and get invested in the characters and the storyline. The style of play originated and was written so that the audience connects with the characters and the storyline. The characters' backgrounds can vary and they can be from high class or lower classes. The performance uses techniques to make the performance convincing and make the audience feel sympathy towards the characters. Some examples of naturalistic theatre techniques are emotion recall, meaning a person can recall a memory whilst acting in order to convey the feelings that that character would feel in that moment. The fourth wall, meaning that the characters ignore the audience and don't communicate with them. And then they also use the 6 fundamental questions, which are used to help establish the character's motivation and the emotional journey throughout the play. An example of a naturalistic playwright is August Wilson, who wrote Fences. He was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1945, and his neighborhood where he grew up inspires many of his plays, as his mother was black and his father was white, so he experienced lots of racism for being mixed race. There are many running themes that go throughout Fences. Some of these include cycles. An example of a cycle in Fences is the repetitive routine that the father has, and he breaks it by cheating, and then the fence that never gets built. And another example of the themes are politics, race, and religion. It is set in the 1950s and 60s in Pittsburgh, America, so there is the play deals with issues such as racism and religion and how it affected people in the 1950s. It was set during the Cold War in America. This is when credit was invented, so families would begin to buy things they never had before. So it shows a lower class family who has more objects than they would normally have. Some comparisons between epic theatre, absurd theatre, and naturalistic theatre is that epic theatre has exaggerated movements and expressions in order to create a divide between the audience, and it also uses techniques such as placards to make the audience think about the performance. On the other hand, naturalistic theatre doesn't use over-exaggeration and allows the audience to passively watch and connect with the characters in the play. In naturalistic plays, the performers use the fourth wall and don't address the audience, but in epic theatre, the performers address the audience throughout the piece. Absurd theatre's cyclical structure is different from naturalistic theatre, as absurd theatre play ends exactly how it began. However, naturalistic play progresses as the storyline develops. Some of the comparisons between the three plays is that Mother Courage was set in the 17th century in Europe, whilst The Caretaker was set in 1950s London. This means there would be a difference in setting in the play, and it would also affect the costumes used in both of the productions. Fences is set in the late 1950s and early 1960s, Pittsburgh, America. This means that there would be a different setting and accent to Mother Courage and The Caretaker, and a different culture because of the place where the play is set.